Okay, today we're going to do an exercise called MontageEX that is going to help us use some techniques that will create the illusion of a convincing picture. And we're going to base the things that we do to adjust this picture. We're going to base those on what we learned about the techniques to create the illusion of depth. So you should open the two files that you've downloaded, the MontageEX start and the axe. So you can check both of those and open them up. So the 6 techniques that we talked about to create the illusion of depth on a 2D picture plane are the idea of overlap, that the object that's closer to us will cover up an object that's behind or further back. The idea of size, that things that appear to be smaller are further away from us, things that are bigger are closer. The idea of placement in the picture plane, things that are placed higher up in the picture plane or closer to the eye level seem to be farther away than things that are lower in the picture plane. The idea of color, how color is affected. Things that are far off in the distance tend to have a duller or more faded hue, and things that are closer to us have a more intense hue or color. And also detail, that things that are closer to us have greater detail because our eyes can see those details better, and things that are farther away have less detail. And then the idea that relates to linear perspective, that idea of converging lines, that straight lines appear to come together as they move away from us. So what we have here is a file that I've created that has a setting. So there's a room layer, a setting, and it has several different things that we're going to place in this room. So what we're going to do first is place the things, get them where we want them to be, and make them seem like they fit in the setting. And then we'll deal with lighting and shadow afterward. So the first thing we're going to do is look at the editor layer. So I'm going to grab the move tool. I'm on the editor layer. I'm going to move him around. So editor does not really fit the setting because he's just like too large. He's too big. If he sat down in that chair, the chair would seem really small. He's kind of floating around the space, which we'll deal with later. But first of all, we're going to place him and size him. So we're going to place him kind of near the bottom bottom left side of the image. And we are going to resize him a little bit by doing edit, transform, scale. When we're trying to make convincing pictures, we want to keep everything in proportion. So when I resize him, I'm going to hold the shift key down on my keyboard as I resize him because that will keep him in proportion. So we'll scale him all together. So we're going to make him just a little bit smaller for this setting. And then you can either click the check mark in your tool options bar, or you hit enter on your keyboard to finish that off. So he's transformed, fits in the setting a little bit better. So editor was already placed in here. Like I said, he's a layer on his own. We can hide him, reveal him, hide the background or the room actually, and show that. Whenever you're working with files, what we're doing here is we're taking source photos from other places. So as I think of other things I want to put in here, I can select and copy a whole image and paste it in here. So the next thing I want to show you is this cowboy source. So the cowboy is the next thing I want to have in here. So I actually just selected and copied the whole photo that has the cowboy in it. And within this file, I can select him and copy and paste him. So I could, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. I could use the polygon lasso tool and create a selection around him. So he's actually on this file, but I can create a selection around him. I'm not going to go very carefully, but you get the idea. You would do this much more carefully if you were actually doing this. So I'm going to make a selection. And then basically once I have him selected, I am going to copy him. So I'm going to do edit copy from this layer. And when I do edit paste, he'll be pasted onto a layer all by himself. Okay. So he is still in the original layer, and then he is also in his own layer. Okay. I did a neater version, which I will just put up here. So you can see there's the cowboy on his own layer. Okay, so he's cut out, neat, clean. The source layer is still hidden, and now he's my active layer. So the cowboy for the setting looks a little bit small. And before I do any resizing with him, I want to place him where I would like him to go. In my mind, Eddar's hopping into the picture over here, and the cowboy is like kind of like jumping over, kind of little parkour action going over by the chair. So what I want to do is have his hand on the chair, but I don't want him going this way. I want him going the other way. So again, before I resize him, I want to get him in the place where he should be. So I'm going to do edit, transform, flip horizontally so that he flips in the other direction. And now I can move him so that his hand is kind of resting on this chair, the back of the chair. And now I'm going to resize him to fit the scale of the room. So edit, transform, scale. I'm going to hold the shift key down on my keyboard, keep him in proportion, and I'm going to size him up a little bit. You can move him while he's in this, still in the transform mode. And size him up a little bit more, and I'm just going to hit the enter key. So there he is. So now they're both in position here. We've got a little overlap with the arm and the leg, which is all fine. So he's in position, Eddar's in position. The other object we have in here is a poster, because Eddar's a good art student. He's got a poster, and the poster is going to go on this wall on the right-hand side. So we're going to make it look like it goes on this wall. Well, here's our poster, this layer. So obviously, we're going to have to do some adjustment here. We want to make this look like it sits on this wall. And if you'll notice, this wall has an angled line at the top, a vertical line where the two walls meet. Down at the bottom where the wall meets the floor, the line where they meet angles up. This is that idea of converging lines. It's as if these two lines, if we extended them, would meet at a point in the middle here. And where it meets, that would be considered our eye level. So that's going to be a horizontal line. Everything above kind of angles down toward that center. Everything below angles up toward that center. So because we want to put that poster up here, we need to consider that angled line, and we need to keep the whole surface of it over here to the right-hand side. I'm going to make the poster visible again. So what we want to do is transform this in a slightly different way. I'm going to scoot this over so that the top right corner of it sits on that wall. So the top right corner is over here. It's on the wall below the line where the wall and the ceiling meet. This time when I transform it, I want more control over how I move things. So I'm going to do edit, transform, distort. And distort is going to let me squish and move different parts of it as I please. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take on the left edge here, I'm going to grab the center point and I'm going to just scoot it over so that I'm squishing the whole size of this over till it fits on the wall. So I'm paying attention to where the line where the two walls meet. I want the whole thing to be over on that wall. And then I'm probably going to squish it up a little bit because it seems a little too stretched out. Okay. Now I want to angle. I want to angle the top and the bottom edge a little bit. So I'm going to grab the top left corner and I'm just going to pull the top left corner down, I'm going to try to keep my vertical lines straight up and down, but I move the top left corner down so that it angles kind of like the line where the ceiling and the wall meet. Now, because we're doing distort, it's giving you lots of options. So your cursor will kind of change this and move this in different ways. So you're going to have to take it easy and pay attention to how it's moving things. So the angle of the top of my poster kind of angles like the top of my wall where it meets the ceiling. And because the bottom edge is still above my eye level, I do want this to angle a little bit. So I'm going to move the bottom right corner up. Then it kind of gives it that angled, more of like a rhombus look as opposed to a perfect square. I'm going to keep my verticals nice and straight up and down. And then I'm going to click enter on my keyboard. So now my poster is in the right place, but the problem is overlap. Well, there's a couple of problems, but right now the problem with placement is overlap. Remember in your layer panel, the layer that is at the top of the stack is what's in front. So right now the poster layer is above the cowboy, which is why the cowboy is partially hidden by the poster. If we drag the poster layer down underneath the cowboy layer, now the cowboy overlaps the poster instead of the other way around. So now it looks a little bit more convincing. So we have our items in place. We have them where we want them to be, but now we need to make some more adjustments.